We're heading into week 16, and we're officially into the playoff stretch of the NFL season. Today, we're going to look at the teams on the bubble. Who gets in? Who misses the cut? Of course, to keep their playoff dreams and hopes alive. After that, we're going to get into our power rankings, best bets, and more for week 16. So, tons to cover. Let's get into it. All right, going back to last week, I was 14-2. Amir with 13-3. On the year, you see our records both around 70% on the season. Now, today's going to be a little bit different because Amir and I recently had a debate, and according to Amir, he doesn't believe I provide context for you guys. So this is what we're going to do, despite what the 18,000 of you believe. Amir, you ready? These are our week 16 game predictions. Usually we dive into these games and talk about who we have winning. So we're not going to do that today. Here's our week 16 picks in the early slate. 2 Saturday games for you guys, but again, we agree on pretty much all of them. And here's the late slate here, of course, heading into week 16. Now, power rankings, I'm not going to waste your time either. Couple movements there. Here's my week 16 power rankings. My top 10, Washington enters, Seattle drops out. But outside of that, we have a new number one. Philly's at number one. No context for myself, but who will give you context is Amir Stewart. So that's what we're going to do. Amir, give me your top 10 predictions or your top 10 power rankings heading into week 16. Pivotal week, mind you. And give us all the context why you have every team where you have them. You're starting with Denver at 10. Why is that heading a key Thursday night game?
So at my 10th spot, I have Denver. And so this spot was between Denver or the Chargers, I believe. And so the Chargers got left off because the Chargers these past couple of weeks have looked a bit shaky. Against KC, they looked decent, but last week was too bad. Like last week, they got absolutely demolished that second half against Tampa Bay. And Denver, on the other hand, they looked shaky last week, but the defense still held up. The offense eventually got back right. And so I kind of had to put Denver in that 10 spot. And at the 9 spot, I got Washington. So Washington was left off a couple weeks beforehand. But, I mean, they won, I believe, 3 straight now. They won 3 straight. Last week, they looked pretty well that first half. Second half got kind of shaky. But, I mean, they're 9-5 right now. I think the playoffs are pretty much guaranteed for them. I think it'll come down to between them and Atlanta in about 2 weeks. So, at my 8 spot, I got Baltimore. It feels weird putting Baltimore at 8, but Baltimore's defense is way too bad. Like, at this point, Baltimore has to fully rely on Lamar throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns each week, or Derrick Henry rushing for 150. And so I had them a step behind Pittsburgh, but I think those two teams are interchangeable. Even though Pittsburgh already won the first matchup, I think this week is going to be the complete opposite. Like I think Pittsburgh's defense has taken a step back these past 2 weeks. They're giving up a lot of big points, big plays, and stuff like that. And the offense looks completely dead without George Pickens. Like where Russ can't stretch the field out, and watching Pittsburgh these past 2 weeks without Pickens, it looks completely worse. At my 6th spot, Green Bay. And so Jordan Love, I believe since the bye week, he's thrown I want to say 13 touchdowns and only 1 interception. Like J-Lo's playing crazy, similar to last year, how last year he started the year off shaky. After that, he kind of turned it up that second half of the season and went on a crazy run. And defensively, they look a lot better. Jaden Reed, and the thing that's crazy about this offense too, Jaden Reed hasn't even had much production, and they're still balling offensively, still looking pretty good defensively. And last week, they just completely dominated a Seattle team that had a 4-game win streak. And so my 5th spot, Minnesota. And so you could argue Minnesota could be higher just because at this point, they're kind of fighting for that 1 seed in the NFC. But, Minnesota is starting to really finally gain my attention again. And I kind of maybe underrated them in the past throughout the season, moving them down. But I mean, the defense looks better and better each week, and I kind of kept bringing it up every single week. The secondary gives up a lot of big plays, but it's last week it was a complete opposite. I mean, they dominated the Bears, completely shut down DJ Moore to a certain extent, slowed down Keenan Allen, even though that Bears offense is terrible. And offensively, I mean, Sam Darnold's finally playing better, taking care of the football. Justin Jefferson is great. Jordan Addison has completely transcended to kind of similar to how he was last year, where he had double-digit touchdowns. And so Aaron Jones as well, he's playing great. And so I think Minnesota can really give Detroit a tough time in the playoffs. And I think that they're honestly going into a pretty good spot in the playoffs. And I have Detroit at 4. I can't believe I have Detroit at 4, but the injuries are way too much. I mean, they're on basically a full third string linebacker core. The offense is relatively healthy, despite Montgomery being injured. I mean, they still got Gibbs, still got a great offensive line. The whole entire receiving core is there. But defensively, I mean, the pass defense is already bad enough. I mean, the whole entire secondary is already bad enough. You lose Carlton Davis as well, and then you're basically just relying on Terry Arnold. A rookie corner was already leading the league in penalties this year. And so I think Detroit is in a really tough spot right now. So at my 3 spot, Kansas City. And so Kansas City, despite having one loss, I have both teams ahead of them just because, I mean, one team beat them and the other team I think is really just that good. And it's that simple. And, I have Buffalo at 2. And I can't believe I'm doing this either. You know me. You know I've been underrating Buffalo. I love Josh Allen, but I mean Buffalo's just playing that good. And you honestly brought up a great point earlier in the season where sometimes less is more. And I think that's the story of Buffalo right now. I think all things are clicking on both sides of the ball. And I'm on one spot. I have Philly. Philly's playing great on both sides of the ball. They've completely addressed their defensive concerns, and ever since the bye week, I think they had a bye week around week 5. They have been great defensively. Jalen Hurts still scares me sometimes, but I think this team is way too talented for me to put them lower than 1.
Less is more is a great theory, unless you're Philadelphia. Philadelphia, you just have too
Yeah,
damn much for other teams to really defend you or find a way to stop you. And as we saw last week, we wanted them to pass the ball, and they dominated in that aspect. Also, salute to Monty, one of my favorite players in the league. Unfortunately, won't be there for this historic season for the playoff run. Now, if your team sucks, this is your favorite segment of the show. We're Browns fans, so we might as well be in this conversation as well. Las Vegas, of course, as of right now, has the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Desmond Ridder might be the worst quarterback I've ever laid my eyes on, as we saw the
bad.
other day. And I don't think they're going to win another game. So, Shador Sanders, get your bags packed. You're going to Vegas. Outside of that, New York is at 2. They're probably going to get Cam Ward. 3 is New England. They're primed for Travis Hunter. 4 and 5, Carolina and Jacksonville. They might win another game here, to close out this season. So they might not be here, but if they are, they both need trench help, whether if it's on the offensive line or on the edge. So look out for them to address that. Any shakeups next week, we will bring you any updates like we do every single week. Now, Amir, this is probably our favorite part of the show. This is the degenerate section of the show. We go through our favorite best bets as far as player props, spread picks, and over-unders on the week. Now, for me, I think it's pretty simple. Now, I had this pick locked in, I think, after the game last Sunday, but, of course, now I think there's added pressure to it. And let me explain. Kyler Murray posted a TikTok, and he said, there's 3 things certain in life. Death, taxes, and number 85 is going to find the end zone. He's referencing Trey McBride.
Yeah,
Pick before, but I believe after setting an NFL record for the most receptions in a single season without finding the painted area, he gets it done this week. Against Carolina, they struggle against tight ends, and I think you finally got to get this monkey off of your team's back. Get him in the end zone, and then shift your focus back to this playoff run, which you're trying to make. So Trey McBride, anytime touchdown, I like those odds this week. Amir, what's your player prop on the week? It's a different one here. I don't think we've ever
yeah.
had this position before.
Yeah, so at my player prop, I made it a bit different this week because I was kind of going through the research and everything, in my opinion, kind of backs it up. And so I have Cameron Digger over 1.5 field goals made. And so I kind of saw some big time bettors earlier this morning betting on his kicking points, but I feel like kicking points are a little too iffy. But I think he's in a perfect spot to go over here. He matched up against Denver earlier in the year. He had three field goals, kicked 3 for 3. He's covered this line, I want to say, like 5 out of 6 home games this season. And he's covered this line also 3 out of 4 times against Denver in his career. And on top of it, I mean, the Denver has the second highest rated red zone defense in the league. And so I think in a game like this, where the Chargers are also bottom 5 in the league in fourth down attempts, I think in a tough defensive matchup like this, kind of where it's like chances to score are limited. I feel like at this point, like if you cross the 50, kick 3, go for 3. And so I think he's in a perfect spot to go over.
I think Justin Herbert's good enough to get this team in scoring position. I just don't know
Yeah,
past that. I don't know. So I think tonight might be a
yeah.
field goal fest between the Broncos and the Chargers. Again, 2 great defenses. Now, our favorite spread pick on the week. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. Usually when you see
I
Baker
like
Mayfield
that.
as an underdog on the sports book, that's when you want to bet him because that's for some reason he just gets up to play. And Baker Mayfield as an underdog that's kind of his MO. But look, they're in the middle of trying to win their division and, of course, make the playoffs. But if they win out and they get some help, they might be able to jump up to the 3 seed here in the NFC side of things. So I think they need to start off on the right foot, get a big win here on the road at Dallas with all the questions that Dallas has. And I think I'm going to take them -3.5. I think they win by at least a touchdown
Yeah.
here against the defense that has struggled in every aspect outside of Michael Parsons. So Tampa Bay on the road, they're favorited, which is not great for Baker Mayfield, but I like them on the road to get a big win. Amir, your favorite spread pick is?
Yeah, -3.5 is way too low. I don't know why the Vegas has that line that low. I think they win by at least like 6, at
I,
least.
I agree.
Yeah, so my spread pick, I have the Rams at -3 against the Jets. I think this is a perfect spot for the Rams to continue, their run of being hot. And we saw the same thing last year, where they started off injury riddled and they went on a crazy run. I think at this point they're going to snag the division. They're 8-6 right now. Seattle, San Fran, and the Cardinals. Like if they don't take this division from them, they miss the playoffs. Like flat out. And so I think the Rams right now are focused on winning. I'm for Sean McVay, Aaron Rodgers, Puka, Cooper Cup, and dominate this Jets defense, who's been terrible so far.
Yeah. I think we're going to fall into the same trap as last year, Amir. I think we're going to see this Rams team
Yeah,
close out the year winning 6 of 7 games or something crazy. And then we're going to go out there and try and bet them, or we're going to believe that they can make a playoff run just like
yeah.
last year. But I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get
I'm,
there. But
I'm, I'm be completely honest. I mean, as bad as they are defensively and at getting stops, honestly, I really wouldn't be opposed to just sort of having this team go to the NFC Championship again. It sounds crazy, but like I mean, they've already played Detroit once. They've already played the Eagles once, and so I mean, they've
they're
already
battle
kind
tested.
of gotten a feel for both of those top two teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, as we've been able to see, I mean, they're able to stay in the fight with anybody, right? But they
Yeah.
also might lose a game to the Jets this weekend, which is a game they shouldn't lose. But Amir, this was also that was going to be my spread pick on the week, and then I, for some reason, backed out of it. So I'm happy that you went in that direction. Our favorite over unders on the week. Look, I'm going to go with another under. Last week, 48.5 was set for the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans game. To me, that was incredibly too high, right? So I took the under on that game and it hit. Oh, by the way, Amir, not sure if you know this, but last week on the show, we gave you guys a perfect 6 for 6 bets on the week.
Mhm.
So again, I think we know what we're talking about here. Detroit on the road at Chicago, could be snowy conditions. Divisional matchup. Detroit has 27 players out with injury. Chicago just hasn't looked great, honestly. I think it's going to be another tough defensive divisional matchup. Say that 10 times fast. And I'm going to take the Bears and the Lions to go under 48.5. Maybe it's like a 2017 kind of a game, and Detroit escapes with a win. Amir, your favorite over under is also an under on the week.
Mhm. So for my under, I have the Cardinals and Panthers under 47.5 points. And you know, for me, I was kind of leaning towards that Giants game at first. But I was kind of looking at it and kind of looking at the numbers and everything. And Carolina's time of possession and ability to get stops has kind of elevated these past 3 to 4 weeks. My biggest concern is after last week, after the Cowboys smoked them, I'm worried that kind of that motivation for them kind of gone away and disappeared. And the Cardinals on the other hand, they're in the spot now where it's like they lost a few games. They've looked really really sloppy,
Mhm.
and so I think this might be just a complete slugfest. I think both teams might just play sloppy, and this could really be a low scoring game.
I think we could both agree, and I want to ask you this: if Arizona loses this game, do you think their playoff hopes are pretty much dead in the water? If they lose
I
this game,
think so. I mean, because it's like at this point, I want to say Green Bay is fifth, and then Washington is sixth, and then
yeah.
who's
And
seventh?
then you got like 4 or 5 teams on the bubble.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Arizona, they need to win out, right? Especially after, I mean, they had a game and a half lead on the division just a few weeks back, but of course they lost a couple games, and
yeah.
they remembered that they were in fact, the Cardinals. But again, 2 unders on the week. It's a little bit shaky, but at the end of the year, maybe these teams don't get up to play they're not as motivated as they were in previous weeks. But let's get into it, Amir. There was a recent shakeup in
Mm.
Atlanta. Now, in this past offseason, they got rid of their old regiment, of course, led by Desmond Ritter and Arthur Smith, and they brought in a new regiment. They brought in Raheem Morris, and they said, we need a quarterback. Let's go out there and give a quarterback $90 million guaranteed in Kirk Cousins. He was looked at to kind of transform this offense, unlock some of these younger, talented weapons around him, and really take this offense to elite levels. Now, they started the year okay, right? They started the year good. You could tell there was an adjustment period, but this last month and a half of football has been so bad that Raheem Morris has decided it's time to hand the keys over to our first round draft pick, the number 8 overall pick, my quarterback for heading into the year, the Michael Penix Jr., a guy that was a journeyman in college, but his last 2 years in college, he dominated at the University of Washington. And his last year, of course, we all remember top 2 in Heisman, right? The runner-up, and he led his team to the national championship and lost to Michigan. But this is a guy that has a rocket for an arm, Amir. He's probably, I think, I had him as the most accurate quarterback going into the season. I said he's the most pro-ready quarterback because, again, 6 years in college will do that for you. Now again, you might just look at him as, hey, he's a great pocket passer, right? Very accurate, and he can move the sticks. But I think at his pro day and, of course, at the NFL Combine, we saw this athleticism from him that we didn't necessarily know he had. So this is a guy that I think they can use in a multitude of ways, and he can unlock this offense and hopefully the weapons around him going forward. Now, their next 3 games, Amir, it's very favorable. They have the Giants at home. Then they go to Washington. That's a big one. But they close off the year with another divisional matchup home against the Carolina Panthers. Should they win all 3 of these games? Roster for roster, I believe they should. But I think the key one is that Washington one in the middle, right? Can they go on the road with a rookie quarterback and take down Jaden Daniels, which is an offense and a team that's just been hot all season? Amir, I want to go to you here. Do you think, one, that was the right decision? And 2, do you think if this doesn't work out with Penix, if he doesn't look great, in these next 3 weeks, to me personally, I think they're kind of backed into a corner at that point. So my question to you is, do you think it was time to hand the keys over despite all the struggles from Kirk Cousins?
I'm gonna be honest. No, I feel like if they were to make this decision, make it sooner. Because I feel like at this point where you're basically 2 games out of playoff contention, or 1 game, I mean, behind Washington was a pretty favorable schedule to end the year. They got Philly, next week next week. So, for me, I'm kind of in the spot where it's like, you go ahead and you start Penix, and even if you do make the playoffs, are you going to rely on him, in his 4th career game starting to basically get you a playoff win and take you on a run?
Right.
I don't know. And so at this point, it's like I think you do everything you can to try to make it work with Kirk. You go into next year and have a legit QB competition because I feel like at this point, like it's so many problems with the team that's bigger than just Kirk too. Like Kirk's playing bad, but the defense has been bad. Like for them to have all that talent on all 3 levels, they have been playing bad all year, giving them a lot of big plays. The play calling is bad. The receivers have been underperforming at times. Outside of Drake London and probably Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts is out there jogging routes, not run blocking.
The greatest decoy in NFL history. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. And so I think at this point, I believe they still should have kept starting Kirk, which sounds crazy because he's played terrible. And I think next year you go into an actual QB competition. You give Kirk maybe like 4 weeks.
Yeah, we talk so much about the benefits of having just this veteran, and then you give your rookie, even though he played 6 years in college and he's played a lot of football. There's a lot of benefits to letting them grow at the NFL level, right? Give them time to mature mentally, to get ready for NFL action. Because as great as he was as a college quarterback, and as much experience as he has, it's not like the NFL, Amir. There's going to be an adjustment period no matter what. I just believe give him more time, like you said. Let Kirk finish the season, go into next year. It's not like you're going to lose some of these young stars that you have, and then let Penix take over. But it's time, and I think that once you take this route, you can't go back. So Kirk Cousins is pretty much done as an Atlanta Falcon. Yeah. I don't think he's coming back next year. I think they're probably just going to eat this dead money like the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, and they're going to move fully into the Penix era. So Kirk Cousins, big free agent. He's probably going to come to our Cleveland Browns. But what I want to do, Amir, looking at their next 3, again, they're 8-6, tied for the division lead. How confident are you? 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the most. how confident are you that they can make the playoffs? To me, I understand. In typical Atlanta Falcons fashion, they're probably going to lose some of these games. But I think winning two of these three games gets you in the playoffs, whether if you win your division or not. So to me, I think you could beat the Giants and you could beat Carolina. If you can find out a way to beat Washington on the road and in Penix's second career game against a defense that hasn't been great all season, and again, we know how these rookie quarterbacks will sometimes find success early on because there's not a lot of tape on them at the NFL level. I think that if they can win two of these three, maybe steal the one against Washington, you're sitting there at 10-6 or 11-6, and you're a great team heading, or I guess you're hot going into the playoffs. At that point, winning four straight. I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. I think they can make a good, I think they can win some of these games and make the playoffs, Amir, whether if they win their division or not. Sneaking in probably as a seventh seed with Michael Penix leading the charge. But you're on the flip side of this, Amir. Explain that. Why are you I guess on the opposite side of this?
So me, I'm on the opposite side, just for the simple reason I really just can't picture them making the playoffs over Washington. And Washington also has a favorable schedule as well. You know, I believe Washington will lose this week against Philly, and then or next week. I mean, and I think Washington is still going to go. Win some games and sneak in. And, I think at this point, I want to say the fifth seed is Minnesota. So I mean, they're clinched. And then the sixth seed, Green Bay, they're 10-4. They're 100% making it, in my opinion. And then that sixth seed or no, the seventh seed right now is Washington at 9-5. And so I think even if they do go into the playoffs with the same record, I just can't picture Michael Penix beating Washington on the road in a second career start. I can't really picture it.
No, I mean, again, you have them at a 1 out of 10, and I understand that. To me, I think you either need one loss from Tampa Bay, which is very possible, even though Tampa Bay is the hottest team in football at the moment, or you just need a loss from, or maybe if you could pick up a big win, right, with not much tape on Michael Penix there against Washington secondary, which, again, is
Yeah.
one of the worst secondaries in the league. But again, I understand your point there. There's going to be an adjustment period. They're playing the Giants this week. That pass rush might even
Yeah.
bother him to the point where he doesn't have a great rookie debut. But again, I believe the talent around him, they just have him do the bare minimum, and this talent can carry them to the playoffs. But again, they need some help. They either need to win out or they need Tampa Bay to lose one. And then, of course, they'd be able to get in. Let's talk about some other teams, though. There's a couple more teams, and we can go through these a little quicker. But of course, big news there in Atlanta. Where will Kirk Cousins go? That's a big question. He's probably going to end up in Pittsburgh, right? Where all these veteran quarterbacks go. Denver, of course, they are currently second in the AFC West, and they're 9-5. Amir, to close out the year, they have a tough schedule, right? They go on the road to the
Yeah.
Chargers.
It's
They
tough.
play tonight on a short week, mind you. Then they go to Cincinnati, and then they close the year at home versus Kansas City. But at this point, with how Buffalo's been hot, I don't see them slowing down. I think Kansas City's going to have to play their starters in Week 18. So very tough schedule for Denver going forward. So that, to me, Amir leaves them, to me, at a 7 out of 10. For the simple fact that I do believe they win tonight against the Chargers. And then you just need to win one of these two games. Who knows? Maybe if Buffalo slips up and loses one of these games, Kansas City at that point doesn't need to play Mahomes and their starters in Week 18. So that could be another win. I honestly think that they make it. Again, the AFC bubble is not as crowded and I guess tough as the NFC side of things. So I think, again, winning 9 games gets you in the playoffs, but 10 kind of secures it. And I think that, again, that's why they're 7 out of 10 for me. But Amir, how confident are you that they make the playoffs?
So I'm at a 6. And so for me, when I was picking my game picks this week, this matchup against the Chargers, I was so close to leaning towards Denver because the Chargers did not look good last week. And so, in my opinion, I think if they don't win this week, they at least win next week because Cincy at this point, they're probably feeling defeated. They know for a fact the playoff chances are completely over. And so really at this rate with Cincy and their whole entire team falling apart, I think they at least snag either one of these two games or in the third week if KC clinches that one seed, they honestly win that too, in my opinion.
I mean, Carson Wentz might be playing. Are you sure that they're going to beat Kansas City?
Hey, listen, surprisingly though, I really think Carson Wentz could really be serviceable
Yeah, I
with
mean,
that.
what a storybook ending. What if he were able to come in after an injured Mahomes and lead this team to a Super Bowl?
Oh man,
That would
that'd be
be a
scripted.
full circle moment for Carson Wentz. I would have to hop back on the bandwagon. For the Chargers, again, we just talked about their division rival. They're 8-6. They've been on a bit of a slide ever since J.K. Dobbins went down, and I think we kind of saw the formula on how to beat this team because if they can't run the ball, it's very easy to lock up this subpar receiving group that they have around Justin Herbert, and they just can't win shootouts, right? As we saw last week, Tampa Bay took it to them, and they put up 40 on this Chargers defense because the defense can only do so much until the offense needs to help them out to win football games like they were early in the season. Now, unlike Denver, they have a far easier schedule to end out the season. They play Denver tonight. Even if they lose that, they're 8-7. I believe they beat New England and the Raiders, who clearly don't want to win, and that puts you at least at 10-7, putting you in a good spot to make the playoffs. So for me, Amir, that's why I have them at an 8 out of 10, maybe a 7, right? If I could do a 7.5, I'd probably have it there. But again, I think you win the last 2 weeks of the season, and if you can win tonight, I think you're pretty much a 10 out of 10 to make the playoffs. But your thoughts, Amir, where you sit on this struggling Chargers team at the moment?
Despite the struggles, I think they get in. I mean, those last two games are way too easily. Even though I put them at a 7, I had them at a 7 just because I kind of want to watch them tonight.
Yes.
Because I'm honestly really never know. Because Drake May has looked great. I keep bringing it up. The Chargers defense has taken a step back these past couple of weeks. They've been kind of on a cold spell on that side of the ball, and that's kind of their mantra, right? Getting stops, forcing turnovers, putting their offense in great position. And, it's been the complete opposite. And, I was kind of bringing it up yesterday, in our group chat where we put our bets and stuff like that. I see a lot of people taking Herbert's passing attempts on the over because without JK, without this run game, I mean, they've looked completely opposite. And,
Yeah.
it's not really Herbert's fault because, I mean, the play calling is sort of tailored to that, defensive scheme to that. And it's like me personally, as a defensive guy, getting ready for a college game, like if a big time starting running back is hurt for a primarily running team,
Yeah.
it makes my life easier because it's like you can still come out of nickel, you can still go ahead and just guard the pass and stop the run at the same exact time. And so I think for Denver, or not Denver, but the Chargers, like if you can at least make this game competitive, sneak past New England, which I think is still going to be a competitive game, I think you make it.
We can go through these next three teams, Amir, relatively quickly because they not only need to win out, they need a lot of
Yeah.
help, right? And I'm not even going to sit here and bore you guys with all these different scenarios. The Dolphins, look, you have San Fran at home. I think you lose that one.
Yeah.
Then you go to Cleveland, snowy conditions. We know how Tua plays when it's not 78 degrees. And then the same situation there in New York. I know the Jets haven't looked great, but snowy conditions probably in New York at that point in the season as well. I have them as a 1 out of 10. Amir, you have them at a 0 out of 10. Any additional thoughts about the Dolphins' playoff hopes?
No, I mean, you brought up a great point. I mean, they got San Fran this week. I don't care if San Fran is 0-12 or undefeated.
Too
It's
physical.
still going to be tough. And then you got two cold games right on the water. I mean, Cleveland's right on Lake Erie, and then the Jets are right on the ocean. So this is going to be tough for them.
The Colts. So now I will say the Colts have a great schedule to close off the year, but losing last week's game after Jonathan Taylor's fumble, it
Yeah.
really shot their playoff hopes pretty much dead. They do play Tennessee, the Giants, and Jacksonville. Those are three teams in the top six of the NFL draft order at the moment. They should win all three of these games, but even at 9-8, that doesn't guarantee you a playoff spot. You're going to need the Chargers to pretty much lose out. You're going to need the Broncos to do the same. You're going to need some help around this. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs, but I have them at a 4 out of 10. Maybe, right, if the Chargers continue this downslide and they can sneak into the 7th seed. But I have them at a 4 out of 10. Amir, you're at a 0. At this point, I'm starting to believe less and less in Anthony Richardson. Your thoughts on this Colts team? If you have any.
Yeah, I mean, this Colts team, like last year, was their chance, and they just completely threw that game away. I mean, Bo Nix gave them three interceptions, and they still lost somehow.
Yeah.
AD Mitchell threw a pick six, which is crazy watching that. Dude just flew out the screen and scored and picked it. For AR, AR still showing flashes, but it's still just like those minor details that's kind of just like not catapulting this offense. And the defense isn't good enough to kind of hold their own and get stops. I mean, like that second half, The Broncos were just driving on them, controlling the clock, taking care of business. And it's like you brought up a great point. Like they got 3 games that they really should win on paper, but it's like, I mean, should they now at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I think we're going to look back at that fumble and say that was the turning point in
Yeah,
their season. Now, the Bengals, look, again, same story. They need a lot of help to get in, despite Joe Burrow's MVP level season and Jamar Chase probably going to get this triple crown. The wins just haven't been there. They've lost a lot of one-score games, and they have a very tough defensive schedule ahead of them going out to close the season. So even if they went out and go 9-8, despite these crazy 3 weeks, I don't know if they make it, but for the simple fact that there's a chance and that it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins,
yeah.
maybe they go out on fire, and maybe they make this interesting. So I'm gonna go 4 out of 10. Amir, same thing there, 0 out of 10 for you. Do you think there's any chance one of these three teams can sneak in?
I'm gonna be honest. I was kind of being a little harsh on my zeros. I probably should have gave something like a 2 or a 3, just because I think this offense is that good enough
Yeah,
to win
right.
out. I think Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Chase Brown the way he's been playing. I think those 4 guys are good enough to go 9-8. But I mean, honestly, I mean, really, it's not guaranteed. You keep bringing it up. Even if they go 9-8, even if they blow these next 3 teams out by 50, I mean, they still probably
Yeah.
won't make the playoffs, and it's tough.
Yeah, you're going to need help. Now we can go through some of these NFC teams a little quicker, right?
Now this is
But
crazy.
Tampa Bay, you're 8-6, and this Amir is my only 10 out of 10. I'm not going to spoil yours, but
This
they
is
have
crazy.
Dallas on the road. Then they play Carolina. Then they play the Saints. I don't see why they don't go 11-6. I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at a 10 out of 10 to make the playoffs. Amir, you're going to join me. Your thoughts on this team that, despite losing Chris Godwin, they've had a lot of great weeks from Jalen McMillan, and this offense is back to where they were to start the year.
Man, this is perfect timing for them to catch fire. I mean, you go ahead, you demolish the Chargers, and now you got 3 straight weeks where you can kind of, still get right, kind of dismantle these teams, get Mike Evans his 1,000 yards. And so you're in a great spot. The biggest challenge for Tampa Bay is not play down to the competition. Because kind of similar to last year, where they kind of got late in the season, they matched up against Carolina where they 100% should have won that game, which they did, but it was like I think the final score was like 9-3, and they almost lost it,
Yeah, they did.
and stuff like that. But at a 10 out of 10. Even if for some reason they do lose one of these games, I don't see anybody else taking this division from them.
Yeah, the schedule's way too easy. So even if they do lose one of these 3 games, I think they could still edge out the Atlanta Falcons. And Mike Evans, he needs 230 yards over the next 3 weeks. That's going to be an interesting, I guess, scene to. So basically, bet the over on receiving yards because he's going to get it. The Seattle Seahawks 8-6. Oh, that's a trend here in the NFC side of things. They have Minnesota at home. Then they go to Chicago, snowy conditions. It's going to be a tough physical game. And then you got the Rams on the road. So this is your last home game of the season coming up, unless you can find a way to win the division. To me, tough schedule. Maybe, since you're still in the mix, maybe if the Rams lose a game or two, you'll be able to steal this division. But I'm going to go 6 out of 10, Amir. Your thoughts as you go a 3 out of 10.
I'm going to 3, and just for the sole reason after last week. I mean, they literally won 4 straight. Green Bay, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, they literally came in and smoked them, dominated that game from start to finish. Gino's not fully healthy anymore; his body's banged up, and so I think matching up against Minnesota now, man, even though you're at home, it's a tough place to play at. Minnesota is rolling. I think Minnesota smokes them as well. And Chicago, I mean, I don't care if Chicago only has 3 wins or 4 wins or whatever. It's still going to be tough. Like it really is. It's going to be at Chicago. It's the bad weather, cold outside, backs against the wall. Even if you win that game, I mean, the Rams. I mean, Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka. And we don't have to keep on stressing enough. I mean, Seattle's in a really really tough spot,
Yeah.
and I'd honestly give them a higher meter if they at least would have been in a competitive game last week.
Right.
But Green Bay just completely dominated that game.
Yeah, I think I give him a 6 also for the reason that, like, we never know what version we're going to get from this team, right?
Yeah,
They win the games they're not supposed to, but they lose the games that they're supposed to win. Regardless, if Gino's not there, this is pretty much a 0 for myself. The Rams, I have them at a 7, right? They go to the Jets this week, then they're home to close the year with 2 divisional matchups against the
it's tough.
Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. So those divisional matchups, they should win, but they're never fun and they're very physical. I think they're 7 out of 10. Look, they just have too much offensively, and to me, the second best coach in the league in Sean McVay. So I am at a 7 out of 10. You're a little bit higher at 8 out of 10, despite this tight division. Amir, I'm assuming you have them winning out.
Yeah, so for me, I have them at an 8 because I think they'll at least go 1-2 in this 3 game stretch, at least. Or not 1-2, but 2-1, I mean. 2-1 at least.
Either
You
way,
know
I
what I
think.
mean?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, 2-1. And so like if they can at least go 2-1, they honestly snag this division. And so, I think they win this week. I believe in Sean McVay. I believe in his offense. They just have too much, man. Like Arizona, if Kyler and Arizona were still kind of clicking on all cylinders, and kind of still flowing, I'd honestly move this meter down. But Arizona has not looked good.
Yeah.
Seattle didn't look good last week. I think Seattle loses this week and kind of loses that confidence even more. And I think the Rams are going to keep on boosting that confidence even more every week.
Yeah. Again, the Rams, they got hot last year. They can do it yet again. We can go through this one quickly. Arizona, right? I think, like we mentioned earlier in the show, they kind of shot themselves in the foot just a few weeks ago. They had a game and a half lead on the division, and it looked like, hey, they might actually be able to win this division. But they stubbed their toe for multiple weeks in a row. They go to Carolina this week. The Rams next week at San Fran. Carolina, I think they win, but the Rams and San Fran, two tough physical matchups. Amir, I'm going to 5 out of 10 for the simple fact that I love K1 Kyler Murray, but outside of that and the fact that this is such a tight division that 3 teams could really win it, I'm going to give them a 5. Honestly, this could be lower, and that's exactly where you have them. You have them all the way down at a 2.
I had them at it too, man. And you honestly brought up a great point. Like they had it all, in their hands, and they shot themselves in the foot. And I had this team winning, I think, 6 games before the year, and yeah, they
I had
honestly
7.
exceeded my expectations.
So,
For a long period of time. But it's like it gets to a point where it's like this team just has so many problems with the roster construction, and just like, has a lot of holes on both sides of the ball. It kind of eventually just caught up to them, and Kyler's played great all year long. Um, but once that week in Seattle kind of hit, we've kind of just seen a kind of a different play style from him. And it's not really fully his fault.